from the National News Studio, Sri Lanka.
A pleasant evening and a very warm welcome to the National News of Rupavahini on ChannelEye. I'm Dhanesh Ali. Joining me is Charita Minipurarachi, and these are the top stories which have made headlines for tonight. Government assures continuous supply of LP gas from August. Failed to be issued for school vans and buses based on the distance. Three-wheelers to register with the police before 31st of this month. Indian Prime Minister believes the incumbent Sri Lankan President will fulfill the aspirations of the nation. Four arrested for violating the court order and loitering near Bandaranaike statue in Galle Face. Parliamentary debate on state of emergency is tomorrow. SJP to vote against it. W.B. Ganegala appointed as the new chairman of Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation. COVID-19 outbreak increases. Health authorities urge people to wear face masks. 34 killed in a bus accident in Kenya.
On to those and other stories in detail now, and starting off with the top local story. The government has taken steps to ensure continuous supply of LP gas from the next month.
Minister Bandula Gunawardena, speaking at the media briefing held to announce the cabinet decisions today, said that steps have been taken to manage the fuel supply amidst severe economic difficulties. Cabinet spokesman Minister Bandula Gunawardena said that Litro Gas Company has taken necessary steps to end the prevailing LP gas shortage by the end of this month. Accordingly, he has added that consumers will be able to acquire LP gas cylinders without any shortages from next month. He also said that necessary steps have been taken to reduce and maintain the power interruption period up to 3 hours a day. He said that the estimated expenditure on fuel for 2022 is at $6.7 billion compared to $2.7 billion in 2015. He pointed out that the increasing fuel expenditure is a concern to the country, which is a small-scale export-oriented economy. He added that the country is only able to secure $2.8 billion from both Hambantota Port and Colombo Port City projects. The minister said that expenditures related to these projects are much higher than the revenue earned. He said that necessary methodologies have been formulated and introduced to manage the distribution of fuel, considering the present financial situation in the country. Now, the supply of fuel based on the final digit of the vehicle numbers was carried out today across the country. The issuance of fuel under this methodology will continue until July 31st.
Accordingly, fuel was issued for vehicles with the final digits of 0, 1 and 2. Long fuel queues were observed even under the new methodology. Several instances where certain vehicles which had previously received fuel based on the final digit of the number plate have extracted the fuel and rejoined the fuel queues were reported across the country. Supplying of fuel under the National Fuel Pass is currently underway in selected filling stations across the country. Meanwhile, the weekly fuel quota provided to all types of vehicles registered under the QR system has been revised. Accordingly, three-wheelers will receive 5 litres of fuel, motorcycles to receive 4 litres, 20 litres for vans and cars, while 50 litres for lorries. Buses will receive a fuel supply of 40 litres. The Ministry of Power and Energy has indicated that all three-wheelers are required to be registered at their respective areas of police station before July 31st. In a tweet, Minister Kanchana Wijesekara said that three-wheelers will only be allowed to obtain fuel from the registered fuel stations. The minister also said that all users of garden equipment, generators and other equipment requires fuel are registered to requirements in their respective divisional secretaries, while their weekly fuel requirements, and to nominate one fuel station to obtain the requirement. Vehicle users that cannot register with the chassis number will be able to register their revenue license from July 29. Users of 49cc bikes have to register with the Department of Motor Traffic to obtain their license and register for the National Fuel Pass, according to the minister. Supply of fuel for school vans and buses will be carried out through SLTB depots. The relevant fuel requirements will be determined based on the distances. Supply of the fuel will be made available on Wednesdays and Saturdays. The relevant decisions was taken during a meeting held between Minister Susil Premachand and representatives of School Children's Transport Association today. The program to provide necessary diesel requirements for farmer community in Vavuniya resumed today. Accordingly, 61,000 litres of diesel have been issued for farmers during last week. And meanwhile, Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi conveys his congratulations to President Ranil Wickremesinghe for taking up the presidency at a critical time for Sri Lanka.
In a congratulatory letter, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has indicated that President Wickremesinghe will nurture economic stabilization and fulfill the aspirations of all citizens of Sri Lanka. The letter has further indicated that as a close friend and neighbour of Sri Lanka, India will continue to be supportive of the quest of the Sri Lankan people for stability and economic recovery through established democratic means, institutions and constitutional framework. The letter has pointed out that the Indian Prime Minister is looking forward to work closely with the Sri Lankan President for the mutual benefit of both the nations and further strengthened the age-old close and friendly relations between the two countries.
And meanwhile, another humanitarian donation extended by the people of India to Sri Lanka reached the Colombo port today. This is the final shipment of the essential food consignment previously received by the country. Accordingly, the shipment is consisted of 16,595 metric tons of rice, 200 metric tons of milk powder and 38 metric tons of medicines including medical equipment. The donations was handed over at the presence of Indian High Commissioner in Colombo Gopal Bagle, Ministers Kehali Rambukwella and Ali Sabri and parliamentarians Sendil Thondaman and Jeevan Thondaman. Accordingly, an overall donation of 40,000 metric tons of rice, 500 metric tons of milk powder and more than 100 metric tons of medicines at a combined worth of $22 million have been extended from India. The humanitarian donations were distributed among nearly 2 million low-income earning families in Sri Lanka. Indian High Commissioner in Sri Lanka Gopal Bagle paid a courtesy call on Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena today.
The meeting was held at the Prime Minister's office. The Indian High Commissioner conveyed greetings from the Indian government and people of India. The Indian High Commissioner thanked the Prime Minister for his guidance in various capacities to strengthen the long-standing and close bilateral relations in all areas of engagement. The Prime Minister extended his wholehearted appreciation for India's unprecedented support to the people of Sri Lanka and extended his congratulations to new President of India, Draupadi Murmu. Secretary to the Prime Minister, Anuradha Sanaka, was present at this occasion.
A group of lawyers appealed to the Colombo Fort Magistrate today to revoke the order issued to prevent the public gatherings and assembling around a 50-meter radius to the established R.D. Bandaranaike statue in Goldface Green. The relevant appeal has been filed when 4 persons were taken into custody this morning for violating the court order. The Colombo Fort Magistrate issued an order recently preventing public gatherings and assembling around a 50-meter radius distance of the established R.D. Bandaranaike statue in Goldface Green. 4 persons who had violated this order were taken into custody by Colombo Fort Police and produced them before court today. The police then marked the 50-meter radius from the established R.D. Bandaranaike statue. Subsequently, a tense situation also occurred between the protesters and the police. Magistrate Thilina Gamage, considering the appeal of the protesters, revoked the court order, requested Colombo Fort Police OIC to appear before courts on July 29. The relevant motion was filed by a group of attorneys representing the protesters. The Goldface Green protesters are continuing the protest for the 109th day today. An individual named Dhanesh Ali, who has been identified as one of the protesters, stormed the Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation premises on the July 13th, has been taken into custody by the Criminal Investigations Department this evening. He was arrested when he had attempted to flee the country from the Katunaik International Airport. A group of protesters stormed into the Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation on last 13th and demanded that the national television's program lineup should be carried out based on their requirements. They also demanded that they require a live broadcast from the impart their views and opinions. Accordingly, two protesters were given the opportunity to share their views and opinions in a live broadcast with the intention to subdue the rising tension surrounding the corporation premises. One of the protesters who took part in the live broadcast, Dhanesh Ali, attempted to flee the country this evening. He had attempted to leave Dubai at 6:25 p.m. in a Sri Lankan Airlines flight UL225. He is currently in the custody of the CID.
Parliament is scheduled to convene tomorrow at 10 a.m. The proclamation on the state of emergency declared by the acting president under the Public Security Ordinance is to be approved after debate. This proclamation was made by the then acting president through a special gazette number 2288/30 dated July 17, 2022. According to the legal provisions, if the approval of the Parliament is not obtained within 14 days for the said proclamation, the proclamation will be cancelled. It is stated in the Gazette that this proclamation has been issued in accordance with the powers vested in the President in terms of the Public Security Ordinance to ensure public security and protection of the public order and the maintenance of supplies and services essential to the life of community. Meanwhile, Vajra Abeyewardene, who was nominated by the Election Commission for the National List, member of the United National Party, which was vacant due to the swearing-in of the President, Ranil Wickremesinghe, is scheduled to be sworn in as a member of Parliament tomorrow morning.
A meeting between Working Committee of Samagi Jana Balawege and its parliamentary group was held at the opposition leader's office today. Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa presided over the meeting. MP Tissa Attanayaka said that the meeting was convened to brief the recent activities to the working committee of the party. He also said that a decision has also been reached over the parliamentary debate organised by the government on the state of emergency. Accordingly, he said that the party will oppose the state of emergency in the parliament. And meanwhile, the former secretary to the Ministry of Mass Media, W.B. Ganegala, has been appointed as the new chairman of the Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation.
The new chairman is a senior administrative officer who had assumed secretary posts in several ministries previously. New chairman W.B. Ganegala assumed duties this evening at the Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation. He had assumed the secretary post of the Ministry of Mass Media twice from 2004 to 2007 and 2009 to 2012. He has also rendered services as the secretary to the Ministry of Petroleum and Petroleum Resources Development as well as Ministry of Housing and Construction. He has also assumed the chairmanship of the Electricity Board from 2013 to 2015 and 2017 to 2018. Obtaining a Master of Philosophy from the University of Colombo, SLR Chairman W.B. Ganegala has also served as Chief of President's Staff and Additional Secretary to the President. Director General of Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation, B. Wijeratne, and senior officials of the national television were present on this occasion. Meanwhile, a discussion was held between Minister Bandula Gunawardene and heads of media institutions today at the Ministry of Mass Media.
57th anniversary of Independence Day of the Republic of Maldives, a flag hosting ceremony was held at the High Commission of Maldives today.
During the ceremony held at the Maldives High Commission, the flag was hoisted by the High Commission of Maldives to Sri Lanka. After the flag hoisting, the national anthem of Maldives was played. The High Commissioner also addressed the gathering during the ceremony. Today also marks the 57th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relations between the Maldives and Sri Lanka. The ceremony was attended by staff at the High Commission of Maldives and Maldivian citizens residing in Sri Lanka. Now, if we go back about 2 years, if you remember, there is a top story which was making headlines globally about an epidemic, the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic which we were facing. But gradually it deteriorated and we didn't have any story to tell about COVID-19. But apparently, from the recent past, there have been increase in the cases.
Yes, Dhanesh and the Director of Epidemiology Unit, Dr. Samita Ginige, also have said that an increase of COVID-19 patients can be observed in comparison with the prevailing conditions.
He pointed out that a new subvariant of the Omicron variant is on the rise across the world. Also, he urged all above the age of 20 who are yet to be vaccinated to receive their respective COVID-19 vaccines.
In today's context, we have seen the increase of reported COVID-19 patients all over the world, especially in the European and American region. Par with that, even in Sri Lanka, we have seen the slight relatively increase of reported cases for last 2 weeks compared to earlier, because for last month of April, May and June, we have maintained daily reported cases somewhere around less than 20 cases per day. But for last 10-15 days, we have observed our reported cases has increased to around 50 or 60 cases per day. That's a bit alarming because of that, and then there is a news of emergence of new subvariant of Omicron in certain part of the world. Considering all those things, there is a possible risk of increasing reported cases in coming days. As a precautionary measure, Ministry of Health has strongly advised public to wear mask, especially during the indoor activities, during the public transport and public gathering. It's a precautionary measure to avoid possible emergence of a huge COVID outbreak in coming days. But don't mix up it. It's not a mandatory, make it mandatory for wear the mask, just a strong Ministry of Health recommend or request public to follow good hygienic measures, including wearing a mask, especially when we are using public transport. In addition, the Ministry of Health strongly recommend public to fulfill their COVID vaccination requirement in accordance with the Ministry guidelines. Especially, we strongly recommended public, because Ministry of Health recommended all above 20 years of age to take first booster dose. But still, nearly out of 14 million eligible people, only 8 million has taken this booster dose. Because of that, another 6 million has not taken yet. They are at risk. If there is any emergence of any possible outbreak, there is a possibility of them develop disease and end up with complications. To avoid that, we strongly recommend people who have not received a booster dose about 20 years of age, please take their due booster dose as early as possible. In addition, Ministry of Health has recommended second booster dose, especially for people above 60 and with comorbid conditions, because they are the people who are vulnerable to death if the outbreaks occur. And for them, we recommended to take the second booster dose 3 months after their first booster dose. With that, we recommended everyone to take their booster dose in accordance with the ministry guidelines and protect themselves as well as the community.
And meanwhile, the Samagi Janabalavage says an all-party government is a necessity under the prevailing crisis situation, and such government should be a people-friendly government.
Parliamentarian Rajitha Senaratne made these remarks during a media briefing held in Colombo today. MP Rajitha Senaratne said that an all-party government should be a people-friendly government and should not be a government which favours the parliamentarians. He added that an all-party government formed with the opposition forces would have people's blessings, while the government formed under President Ranil Wickremesinghe has no people's mandate. Therefore, he said that forming an all-party government with President Ranil Wickremesinghe would be problematic.
And meanwhile, the Frontline Socialist Party says that who are responsible for the assault on the protesters at Goldface Green should be penalized both domestically and internationally. Party Education Secretary Pubudu Jagoda made these remarks while taking part in a media briefing held in Colombo today. Education Secretary of the Frontline Socialist Party, Pubudu Jagoda, said that who are responsible for the assault on protesters at Goldface Green should be penalized both domestically and internationally. He said that if those who are involved are not from the police, Sri Lanka Army or Sri Lanka Air Force, then they should provide clarifications and withdraw from the responsibility. And the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna says those who were invited to take up the premiership failed to accept the post.
Remarks were shared in this regard during a media briefing held today. MP Sri Lanka said that they will vacate their positions as public representatives when people reject them. He said that as the ruling party, they invited the opposition position to take over the premiership of the country when SLPP Prime Minister resigned from the post. However, those who said that they will take over the power following the resignation of both the President and the Prime Minister never came forward to form the government. He added, the parliamentarian said that President Ranil Wickremesinghe came forward to take up the responsibility as a matured politician.
MP Vasudeva Nanakara says that independent party collective led by Socialist People Front is currently in the effort of taking over the opposition leader position. He made his remarks during a media briefing today. MP Vasudeva Nanakara said that negotiations are currently underway with several political factions. He said that discussions are also underway over the inclusions of Dalasalaha Peruma and his faction into the independent party collective.
Farmers in Polonnaruwa have extended their gratitude for providing urea fertilizer under the fertilizer subsidy program. The distribution of fertilizer is currently underway in Polonnaruwa area. The aim of the government is to provide fertilizer for all the farmers engaged in paddy cultivation in Yalla season. Accordingly, distribution of urea is currently underway across the country. The distribution process is being carried out with the mediation of agrarian organizations. That's all we have on local news. Stay tuned for international stories coming up next.
Welcome back with international news. And leader of Indian National Congress Rahul Gandhi was detained today after he led a protest and sat on a road in the heart of the capital.
President of Indian National Congress Sonia Gandhi is currently being questioned by the Enforcement Directorate of India. The Congress leader, surrounded by scores of policemen, sat on Rajpath, the High Secretary Avenue near Parliament, and top government officers as he protested over a range of issues including price rise. After a standoff that lasted for about an hour, the Congress MP was detained by the policemen. In another part of the city, his mother and Congress President Sonia Gandhi was at the Enforcement Directorate for the second round of questioning in connection with the National Herald case. Rahul Gandhi also went there before joining the protest at Parliament. The Congress MPs were protesting over the opposition being silenced in Parliament a day after four-party MPs were suspended for the entire monsoon season. The MPs who planned to march towards the Rashtrapati Bhavan were stopped halfway.
An update from Kenya, and the Kenyans local reports say that 34 passengers on a bus have died after the vehicle slid off a bridge and fell 40 meters into a valley. The bus belonging to the Modern Coast Company was travelling from the central town of Meru to the coastal city of Bambusa. Rescue efforts resumed Monday morning and rescuers recovered more bodies and survivors after the Sunday evening accident. Some of the injured are receiving treatment in nearby hospitals. The media report an initial investigation showed that bus's brakes might have failed. Witnesses say that bus driver had lost control of the vehicle before it fell into the river. The media further report said that the Kenyan Transport Regulator has ordered all buses belonging to the Modern Coast to suspend operations pending an investigation into the crash. And from Kenya to Canada, in his first public remarks in Canada, Pope Francis has asked Indigenous residential school survivors for forgiveness.
The Pope said on the grounds of a former residential school in Musqueam, where near Edmonton, that he is deeply sorry. He also said his apology is a first step and that the serious investigation into abuses must occur to foster healing. The pontiff is in Canada to apologize for the church's role in schools meant to assimilate Indigenous children. The government-funded schools were part of a policy meant to destroy Indigenous cultures and languages. The papal apology was received by applause from survivors in the audience, some of whom travelled far to hear the Pope speak.
And the UN Women's Country Representatives in Afghanistan, Alison Davidian, says that fundamental social and political rights of most Afghan women and girls have continued to deteriorate since the Taliban takeover. She made these remarks while talking to the reporters in New York via video teleconferencing yesterday.
It's been 344 days since the Taliban took power, and for most Afghan women and girls, almost every one of these days has brought a deterioration in their rights, their condition, and their social and political status. Afghanistan is the only country in the world where girls are banned from going to high school. Women are restricted from working outside the home, except for a few sectors and particular roles. There are no women in cabinet, and there's no Ministry of Women's Affairs, effectively removing women's right to political participation. Women are required to have a male chaperone when they're travelling more than 78 kilometres, and they're also required to cover their faces in public. Combined, these restrictions limit the ability of women to earn a living, to access health and education, to escape situations of violence, and to exercise their rights. Some women told me that they're still able to go to market without a mahram, but they live in fear that one day they will be stopped and beaten for the act of going to buy groceries without a mask. Some women also told me that Afghanistan feels safer now, that they're less afraid of indiscriminate attacks and relieved that conflict has subsided. But safety comes at the expense of agency, and for most women, this price is too high. Afghanistan is not the only country in the world where we're seeing rollbacks on women's rights. But what has happened in Afghanistan is an alarm bell for all of us, because it shows how decades of progress on gender equality and women's rights can be wiped away literally in months. What is happening in Afghanistan is a clarion call to everyone that the fight for women's rights in Afghanistan is a global fight. It's a battle for women's rights everywhere.
Terima Kotumi Pantan.
On sports news, it's cricket, and this is the Pakistan's tour of Sri Lanka. Today is the third day of the second test match between Sri Lanka and Pakistan. At close of play, Sri Lanka, for their second innings, scored 176 runs for the loss of 5 wickets. Accordingly, Sri Lanka has a lead of 323 runs against Pakistan.
The match is being played at Galle International Cricket Stadium. At the beginning of play, Pakistan was 191 runs for the loss of 7 wickets. Pakistani's tail ended up with a fight against a strong spin bowling attack from Sri Lanka. Yasir Shah scored 26 runs while Hasan Ali scored 21 runs in the morning. Accordingly, Pakistan's first innings ended with a score of 231 runs. Ramesh Mendis for Sri Lanka picked up 5 wickets for 45 runs. Sri Lanka's second innings was opened by Niroshan Dickwella and Oshida Fernando. Dickwella scored 15 runs while Oshida Fernando scored 19 runs. Kusal Mendis scored 15 runs and Angelo Matthews in the middle order scored 35, while Dinesh Chandimal scored 21. At close of play, Captain Dimuth Karunaratne and Janandeji Silva are in the foot of building a collapsed Sri Lankan second innings. Dimuth Karunaratne is not out for 27, while Dhananjay Silva is not out for 30 runs.
Terima Kotumi Pantan.
And that's all the news we have for tonight. Do join us tomorrow at 8:50 p.m. for the very latest on ChannelEye. I'm Dhanesh Ali, together with Charita, signing off for tonight. Good night.
Good night.